Welcome to Sips with Scrubs, a nurse podcast where we talk about the good, bad, and ugly of being a nurse. I am your host, Nurse Laney. Welcome for those who are new listening and those who are returning. Welcome back. Today is another solo episode, and it's going to be a little bit different than usual, as today is going to be a whole bad scrub episode. But before we get into that, we're going to start off with the sips of today's episode. So today we'll be sipping on water, keeping it real plain. So y'all get y'all drinks together and sip along with me throughout today's episode. So the question is, hello y'all, where are all my med-surg nurses at? I need general advice on what to expect on this 7A to 7P shift and how to handle this unit as a new grad. I'm a little nervous. So as a new grad, and that's day shift, I don't know, because I be feeling like everybody different, everybody handle things different. I feel like how you grew up really determines like what kind of nurse you're gonna be. So a lot of the stuff now is kind of like when I give advice, it's best if I like kind of know the person, because then I can tell what your problems may be that you may run into while you're doing nursing. You know what I'm saying? Because not everyone runs into the same issues. Like for a lot of new nurses, time management, I would say, and prioritization are like the main issues. But I personally never had an issue with that. But generically speaking, so since like I said, a lot of times those are issues, I'll speak to that in a bit. But also another thing I think I see new grads having a problem with is confidence. But I mean, that's understandable because you're new, you don't have a lot of experience. So I could see why you'd be lacking in confidence. Another thing I'd see is just like maybe communication, but that could tie into the confidence too, because maybe you're not communicating effectively because you're not confident in like your knowledge and things of that nature. And then the confidence can also spill into like you communicate not only with the patients but also with like other staff members and doctors, and like really advocating for your patients or for yourself because you're not confident. So I think overall the main issues I would say is confidence, time management, and prioritization. So what I would say, like as advice, I first would like to start off saying like give yourself some grace. I feel like some people have like a hard time adjusting because they're really hard on themselves and they expect them to know everything. Like they expect for themselves to know everything, but that's never going to be the case. So I think that the first thing you need to come with terms with is that no nurse is all knowing. We're all figuring this stuff out. Every patient is different. So it's like some stuff you can expect, like with heart failure patients. Okay, maybe they'll be short of breath. Maybe they have like extremity swelling and things like this. Like it's certain things you'd expect, and it's like, okay, because of that, they'll probably order this, that, and this, and like, oh, what's the BNP? Like it's certain stuff that kind of goes with certain diseases, but because every patient is different and they may have different comorbidities or like just how their body reacts to stuff is different. Like some stuff may not be true to each person. So because of that, things fluctuate. So it's like it normally is this, but maybe it's not with this person type of thing. So I'm saying that as a more experienced nurse. See, it's like you think you know something and then something else happened and it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on with this person. Let me call the doctor type of thing. So I would first say, like, you're not expected to know everything. You're only one person. That's where there's a whole team taking care of people. If you're not familiar with something, make sure you ask questions and inquire about it. And with that, it'll build your knowledge base and also your confidence, because now you're like, okay, I see like this is how it's going. And oh, I are also like you see other experienced nurses like, oh, they don't know everything too. Okay, so I'm not the only one type of thing. So I would like to first start off saying with like give yourself some grace. You're not gonna know everything. You're new here. You're trying to figure stuff out. So I feel like the first couple of months most likely might be your hardest for some people. So just like don't quit too early. Just stick it out. 3 to 6 months I feel like it might take for some people to get adjusted to a unit. or even just like nursing period, because a lot of stuff is not just the unit that's having issues. It's that's what nursing is in general. I feel like a lot of new grads may have a false impression of what nursing entails. So that first couple of months when you're on your own is when you're like, oh, so this is what it is. Because even like when you're like orienting and you're with your preceptor, they're there to cover your butt. Like, so they might be doing small stuff that you not realizing that they're doing to help you out. So when you're on your own, I feel like it's really when like shit hits the fan, so to speak, and you're like, okay, now you're feeling the whole weight of being a nurse when you're fresh off orientation. So I feel like when you're like still with your preceptor, they're still doing little things to help you out, whether or not you know it. And when you're on your own, now you have to do everything. So now you're really feeling the impact of being a nurse. So I'd like to say first, give yourself grace. So that's some advice I'd give. Ask questions, learn as much as you can, be open to suggestions. Don't be discouraged. I think that ties in with the giving yourself grace, because I feel like if you know, like, okay, everyone has to go through this. This is just like a rough period. I'm going to make it out. Then I feel like you might come for you to some extent. So you're not discouraged. I also will say, as far as time management, everybody does things a little bit differently. So know that too. So like you might be doing what your preceptor says because that's the way they do it. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out what works best for you in your nursing career, because everybody's personality is different. So some people can do things that other people can't and interact with patients like in one way, and you don't interact with patients like that. Like I said, everybody's different. Everybody's personality is different. Our like strengths and weaknesses are different. So kind of figure out what you do best and rely on that. And then from there, a lot of stuff is just going to be trial and error. It's like, okay, this didn't work. Let me try this. Or you got to figure out what's going to work best for you. And then once you know that, then you'll be able to be like, okay, I know I'm not good at IVs. I think you should still, as a new grad, you should try everything. But after a while, I feel like you should try everything like at least once, twice, whatever. But I feel like after a while, you kind of know, like, I'm just not good at this. Let me see who is good at this on this unit and ask them to do it. They're going to save you a little bit of stress. And then whatever you're good at, you can help them do or whatever. So I feel like that comes to a point too. But like I said, everybody is really just trying to figure this stuff out. Things change. What works in the first time you do something might not work later. As far as experienced nurses go, you might interact with one patient that way and it doesn't work with another patient. So every day is different. Once you get the unit down and the flow of how the day goes, I think that helps out a lot. And then you could try to figure out the rest. But that's what I would say. If you guys have any other advice that you'd like to give this new grad nurse, definitely comment it down below if you guys are watching on YouTube. And if you guys are just listening, head on over to our Instagram page, Sips with Scrubs, and then you could comment on there as well. So now we are going to select a conversation card. I always feel like I don't want to get one that I've had before, but I might have somebody new listening, so I guess I'll still answer it anyway, because maybe you didn't listen to a previous episode. So right now I'm just shuffling the cards up, and then we're going to see what we get. All right, let's see. What did you learn the hard way in nursing? That's a good question. I don't know. Well, the first thing that came to mind is something that I've talked about before on here, and that not everyone is vocal as far as to like what's right and what's not right with how nurses are treated. It's like a lot of times if you work on the unit, you will hear people complain, and you think because people are complaining like it would amount to something, but a lot of times it doesn't amount to anything. People just complain to each other, complain to themselves, be like looking like they don't want to come to work and things like that, but they don't ever do anything about it, and they don't talk to upper management about it. So upper management at the time is like not aware of a lot of the things that people may be feeling, even though they be having all these surveys. People don't do them, or if they do them, they're not truthful. And then even like with evaluations, your manager will come and ask you, y'all have like a one-on-one meeting, and people will still lie and be like, oh, everything's fine, and don't actually express themselves. So there's no changes can be made because nobody is actually speaking up. So I feel like I learned that the hard way in nursing because I thought like I'm really like a solution based person. Like if there's a problem and I think I know something that could probably help resolve it, I like to do that. Like I'm like, okay, like I'm all for changes. Let's implement some changes. Let's see what's worked. Let's see what doesn't work. Just because we've been doing stuff the same way the entire time since nursing began don't mean that that's the best way to do it. Why it's still set up like this? I'm that person. So when I see stuff like everybody knows this is a problem, everybody acknowledges this is a problem, but nobody's doing anything about it, that kind of irritates me. And I had to learn a way to be okay with that and and really just let it be at that because I used to get really frustrated with okay, all y'all complaining, all y'all talking, y'all coming to me, and then I used to be like, I'll tell the managers because now I don't have that issue because I'm system float pool. So I float to a lot of different hospitals. So I'm not staying based in one unit to really just be like, let me implement some change. So I don't encounter that now, which took some stress off of me. But when I did, when I was like had a home unit or whatever, I had to learn how to not let that frustrate me and just know that some people just go talk and not do anything about it. But when you think about it, that's not just not in nursing either. That's like in regular life as well. People will complain. People will talk your ear off about something and actually not even say anything about it. And that's you just have to know that that's how people are. And then you have to know that if you are going to be the one to speak up on it, that to know that you might be the only one to speak up on it, even if you heard everybody else say it. And now you're the one vocalizing it. And even if they next to you, they still may not say anything. They're just going to look and be quiet. I've personally experienced that in nursing several times where it's like, we just talked about this. Y'all got my back type of thing. So that's one thing I learned the hard way in nursing. That's like a lot of kind of like politics stuff that people don't talk about. And even like kind of like patient safety stuff. And then sometimes when there are like trying to implement changes, sometimes that stuff just doesn't play out like immediately. Sometimes stuff takes like a year or, you know, a while to actually like come to a point. So you just have to know that and be okay with it. You know, it's just not, I don't really care for that part, but that's just one thing. Y'all let me know if y'all have ever experienced that before, because I'm like, I be like, girl, this is like, why are we going through this? Like, we don't have to be going through this, but that's how some people are. So it's just kind of crazy that everybody okay with not being okay, and it's just like, why? What, that's not the kind of life I want to live. That's all I can say about that. So now we're going to get into what today's episode is mainly going to be about. So, as I mentioned before, today's episode is going to be a bad scrub episode. Just bad scrubs. So, I don't know how often I'm going to be doing this. I was going to make a schedule and then I was like, I don't want to adhere to anything. I just want to do whatever I want to do when I want to do it. Which is kind of a lot of things in life. I don't like committing to stuff and not following through. So I'm just know what to commit to and what not to commit to. So this one, we ain't committing to how often it's going to be put out. But occasionally I will be doing episodes where it's just bad scrubs. And now I see what the YouTube girlies be talking about when they be saying, this is a lot of work. The ones who do like true crime and stuff like that. Because that's like, that's why we got bad scrubs, like as a segment on here, because I am a true crime girl. Like that's what I be watching when I'm off as a hobby. Like I watch the documentaries. I like suspense and thriller movies. Like that's just me. Like that's my gig. So I really enjoy it. So that's part of the reason why I implemented Bad Scrubs as a segment. And also because I be wanting to know like how people be getting fired, because I be feeling like it be taking a lot for people to get fired as a nurse. And I be like, dang, you still out here nursing? Is this safe? You see stuff in real life that you be like, maybe you should do something else or whatever. But it be wild to me. So I be wanting to know what make people get fired, because it seemed like it be taking a lot since people so desperate for nurses. So, as I said, today's episode is going to be a bad scrub episode. So today's Bat Scrub is one of the most prolific serial killers in New Jersey history, whose acts have caused him to be mentioned on shows such as Nurses Who Kill and have movies like The Good Nurse and Capturing the Killer Nurse, both available on Netflix, which many of you may have watched. I actually didn't watch like any of those. I know I said I like the true crime stuff, but I didn't watch it. Actually, I had looked up this before The Good Nurse came out, and I know a lot of people watched it and said it was good. From my understanding, they did the movie from the perspective of the girl who ended up being able to get him to turn himself in. So I found that as an interesting perspective. The way they do documentaries is very interesting nowadays, and Netflix has been doing a really good job of it because I feel like you could just tell the story straightforward. And I mean, that's one way of doing it, but there's another way to tell it from like somebody else's point of view. That's pretty cool. But anyway, like I said, I didn't actually watch it. I looked him up, used several articles to pull the pieces together. So hopefully this is a complete dissection of this person. If anybody has anything else to add, definitely comment it down below if I missed anything or if it's like some little interesting detail I left out, because I'm all up for that. So like I said, this episode is going to be a deep dive into this nurse and the tragic events that followed him. So the nurse that I'm talking about is Charles Cullen, for those who did not watch any of those shows or movies. He was born on February 22nd, 1960 in West Orange, New Jersey, and raised in a working-class Catholic family, and he was the youngest of 8 children. He grew up in the care of his mother, as his father died when he was 7 months. His mother followed suit in Charles' senior year of high school. He would go on to describe his childhood as miserable, filled with bullying and several attempts of unaliving himself. So he had like a really rough childhood. The following year, after his mom passed, Charles dropped out of high school and enlisted in the Navy, where he would eventually be medically discharged for undisclosed reasons in 1984. Shortly thereafter, he was enrolled in nursing school and graduated in 1986 and began work at the burn unit of St. Barnabas Medical Center in Livingston, New Jersey. I was always thinking like, they do background checks on us, right? Because when you do nursing school and stuff, you have to get fingerprinted and all this other stuff. So I'm like, well, I guess when people get discharged from the military, they don't is not dug into. I don't know. But normally when people get discharged, I'm like, didn't they do something bad or do drugs or something wasn't right there. So I'm like, y'all didn't look into that. But also it was like the 80s. I feel like a lot of this true crime stuff, people was getting away with stuff that they shouldn't have gotten away with, but technology just was not where it's at now, and that's how they ended up slipping through people's fingers, because now I'm like, baby, it's 2023, you better catch them. But he began work at the burn unit. Meanwhile, he met and married Adrienne Baum in 1987. They had a daughter. First of 2 girls was born later that year. However, Cullen's wife became increasingly disturbed at his unusual behavior and his abuse of the family dogs. That's a red flag. Why? What would the dog do to you? In 1993, she filed a restraining order against him based on her fear that he might endanger her and their 2 children. She claimed that Cullen had spiked people's drinks with lighter fluid, burned his daughter's books, and left his daughters with the babysitter for a week. Cullen denied these claims, saying that his wife was exaggerating. Nevertheless, she continued to insist that Cullen was mentally ill. So let me tell you something. How you even get with him? Because I'm just like, that's weird behavior, right? And it seemed like, oh, so you comfortable. How did I find out about all this stuff? Because either you really stupid or you don't care, or you just you real comfortable. So you've been doing weird shit this whole time. And I just be wanting to know how we even got together. But we're going to move on. So now we're going to get into his life as a nurse. That was a little bit about his background. On June 11th, 1988, he administered a lethal overdose of IV medication to a patient. Cullen eventually admitted to killing several other patients at St. Barnabas, including an AIDS patient who died after he had given him an overdose of insulin. He left St. Barnabas in January 1992 when the hospital authorities began investigating the contaminated IV bags. The investigation later determined that Cullen had most likely been responsible, resulting in dozens of patients' deaths at a hospital. So, of course, while he was doing this, like, ain't nobody know what was going on. So later, he came back and admitted, like, this is what he was doing. So he did that at one hospital. And like I said, there was an investigation that began. So then he dipped. 1 month after leaving St. Barnabas, Cullen took a job at Warren Hospital in Phillipsburg. There you go. Phillipsburg, New Jersey, where he murdered three elderly women with overdoses of the heart medication digoxin. His victim said that a sneaky male nurse did it. And honestly, that's odd because I've had a patient like that one time where it was like, oh, somebody came in my room and I don't know who it was. So, like, did somebody really come in your room? Are you confused? Are you hallucinating? Or do you have dementia? It's like, it's a lot of possibilities there. But I've definitely had, like, somebody say that. And then we were trying to figure it out. And apparently they said something about there was an alternate exit in that patient's room where you could go through the room and go through the bathroom, I believe it was, and, like, leave that way. It's weird. I never understood it because I thought I looked around that room and I didn't see anywhere where you could exit. But that's what they said. So they was like, somebody actually was in that room. I don't know. Some creepy things be going on in the hospital, y'all. But that's what one of his final victims said at that hospital. The following year, Cullen moved into a basement apartment in Phillipsburg after the divorce from his wife. He later claimed that he wanted to quit nursing in 1993, but the court ordered child support payments forced him to continue to work. In March 1993, Cullen broke into a co-worker's home while she and her young son slept, but he left without waking them. He then began stalking the mom, who filed a police report against him. Cullen subsequently pleaded guilty to trespassing and received 1 year of probation. The day after his arrest, he made another attempt to unalive himself. Cullen took 2 months off work and was treated for depression in 2 psychiatric facilities. However, he attempted to unalive himself twice more by the end of that year. That September, a 91-year-old cancer patient at Warren Hospital reported that Cullen, who was not her assigned nurse, had come into her room and injected her with a needle, and she died the next day. Her son protested that her death was not natural, and the hospital administered a lie detector test to Cullen and several other nurses, which he passed. Cullen continued to work at Warren until the following spring. So we just put a pin in that right there. I just wanted to say, with him having all these psych issues and things like that, and no disrespect to the mental ill community or whatever, but shouldn't that be, like, investigated, like, upon coming back to work, or is that illegal? Because I'm just thinking, like, maybe you're not stable, so you shouldn't be taking care of patients. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. Cullen began a 3-year stint in the ICU of Hunterdon Medical Center in Flemington, New Jersey. He claimed that he did not harm anyone during the first 2 years at Hunterdon. However, hospital records for that period have been destroyed at the time of his arrest in 2003. Cullen admitted to murdering 5 patients between January and September 1996, again with overdoses of digoxin. He then found work at Morristown Memorial Hospital, but was soon fired for poor performance. He remained unemployed for 6 months and stopped making child support payments. After seeking treatment for depression in the Warren Hospital emergency room, he was briefly admitted to a psych facility. See, that's what I'm saying. He keeps getting admitted to all these psych facilities. So y'all don't think, like, maybe you should choose something else to do. In February 1998, and then honestly, now that I think about it, since he keep trying to unalive himself, isn't it dangerous for him to have access to, like, all the stuff nurses have access to? Okay, so just thoughts. So in February 1998, he was hired by Liberty Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania, where he staffed a ward of respirator-dependent patients. There he was accused of giving patients drugs at unscheduled times. He was fired after being seen entering a patient's room with syringes in his hand, an encounter that left the patient with a broken arm. Cullen caused the patient's death at Liberty Hospital, which was blamed on another nurse. After leaving Liberty, Cullen was employed at Easton Hospital from November 1998 to March 1999. On December 30th, 1998, He murdered yet another patient. A coroner's blood test showed lethal amounts of digoxin in the patient's blood, but an internal investigation within Easton Hospital was inconclusive. Evidence did not definitively point to Cullen as the murderer. In March 1999, Cullen took a job at the burn unit of Allentown's. How many hospitals does this boy go to? Where he murdered one patient and attempted to murder another. 1 month later, he voluntarily resigned from Lehigh Valley Hospital and took a job at the Cardiac Care Center at St. Luke's Hospital in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. During the subsequent 3 years, he murdered at least 5 patients and is known to have attempted to kill 2 more. January 2000, he once again attempted to unalive himself by lighting a charcoal grill in his bathtub and hoped to succumb to carbon monoxide poisoning. Isn't there easier ways to do that? His neighbors smelled smoke and called the fire department and police, and he was taken to the hospital in a psychiatric facility but returned home the following day. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, how is this? How are we still here? This is like the 5th psych hospital. This is like the 8th hospital he worked at. Like, that's what I'm just trying to figure out. I don't know. No one suspected Cullen was murdering patients at St. Luke's until a coworker found medication vials in a disposal bin. The drugs were not valuable outside the hospital, and since they were not used in recreational drug use, the theft was highly unusual. An investigation showed that Cullen had taken the medication. He was offered a deal by St. Luke's to resign and be given a neutral recommendation or to be fired. He resigned and was escorted from the building in June 2002. 7 of his co-workers at St. Luke's later alerted the Lehigh County District Attorney of their suspicions that he had used drugs to kill patients. Investigators never looked into Cullen's past, and the case was dropped 9 months later for lack of evidence. In September 2002, he began working in the critical care unit of the Somerset Medical Center in Somerville, New Jersey. He began dating a local woman around then, but his depression worsened. He killed at least 13 patients and attempted to kill at least 1 more by mid-2003 using digoxin, insulin, and epinephrine. So that's like a whole year. So like within 1 year, he killed at least 13 people. That's a lot of people to be killing in a year span. On June 2003, he unsuccessfully attempted to murder Somerset patient who was later discharged and died 6 months later of natural causes. That's crazy. Somerset began to notice Cullen's wrongdoing when he accessed the rooms and computerized records of patients to whom he was not assigned. The hospital's computerized drug dispensing cabinets showed that he was requesting medications that his patient had not been prescribed. His drug requests included many orders that were immediately canceled and many requests within minutes of one another. In July 2003, the executive director of the New Jersey Poison Information and Education System warned Somerset officials that at least 4 suspicious overdoses indicated the possibility that an employee was killing patients. The hospital delayed contacting authorities until October. So from July to October, they didn't do nothing. By then, Cullen had killed at least 5 more patients and attempted to kill another. Y'all need to be sued. Because why was there a delay when they already told you that this is a possibility that this is going on in y'all hospital? That's wild. When the patient in Somerset died of low blood sugar in October 2003, the hospital alerted the New Jersey State Police. The patient was Cullen's final victim. State officials castigated the hospital for failing to report. Okay, there we go. A non-fatal insulin overdose administered by Cullen in August. An investigation into his employment history revealed past suspicions about his involvement in patient deaths. Somerset fired Cullen on October 2003, for lying on his job application. The nurse, Amy, so this is the one actually who that movie was about, alerted the police after she had been alarmed about Cullen's records of accessing drugs and his links to patient deaths. Police kept him under surveillance for several weeks until they had finished their investigations. Investigators assigned Amy to visit Cullen after work hours to talk to him while she wore a wire. With that evidence, police had produced enough probable cause for arrest. He was arrested at a restaurant in 2003 and admitted to the homicide detectives that he had murdered a patient and attempted to murder another patient. In order to avoid the death sentence, he confessed to several other murders that he had committed. Cullen told the detectives that he murdered as many as 40 patients over his 16-year career. I don't know. It might be more than, yeah, it definitely was more than 40 because in that 1 year you had already did like 13. So the question is, how he get away with this for so long? So he said that he gave patients overdoses so that he could end their suffering. I think he was lying. I think you just wanted to kill people because it was not like them other people who be killing people to put people out their misery because you was already doing weird shit like at home. So I think that something was wrong with you. Like, yeah, something's wrong with you. So they were trying to say like, oh, well, he was trying to say he was trying to end their suffering and prevent hospital personnel from dehumanizing them. Instead of using common painkillers and stimulants, access to which is like strictly regulated by hospitals. And then for those who are nurses, y'all know that when we pull stuff out the Pyxis, sometimes you have to count. So that's why he chose the medications that he did, because those don't have to be counted. Cullen chose drugs such as digoxin and insulin, which had little use of outside of a hospital setting and were less likely to attract attention. Employers feared investigating incidents are given a bad employment reference. So this is why the hospitals never said anything to the other ones that he got put on to. Like, remember how I was like, how he keep getting a job? Like, and I don't think even just like the hospital, like with recommendations and stuff like that. But if you think about it, the hospitals that were hiring him, even like, I'm like, y'all, well, I guess you don't have access to people like medical background and stuff like that. Because I'm like, when you take pause in hiring somebody if they keep getting in and out of psych facilities, but that's not information that's disclosed when you do it. You just have like job references and stuff. So I guess, but employers never gave him any bad employment references, and some of them never pursued investigations because they feared that their actions would trigger lawsuits. See, this is my problem with people. So you okay with maybe knowing somebody killing people over a lawsuit? That's wild. According to detectives and Cullen himself, several hospitals suspected him of harming or killing patients but failed to take appropriate legal actions. And I feel like everyone in them hospitals need to get something happen to them. I don't know what the proper thing would be to do, but that's like effed up because you was scared of lawsuits and things. You put that above human lives. So how many people did he get away with killing? Like the first 2 hospitals, I'm like, all right. But after that third one, the way he was hospital hopping, it had to be at least 8 hospitals that I mentioned while talking about this man. So it's like after a while, come on, like, what is the resume not showing that he's working at these hospitals for short amount of times? And I know as nurses sometimes we do hop around a lot, but not like that. Not for like how he was doing, and then for them to be having suspicious stuff going on in their hospital. But then again, like I said, they would have to disclose it to the other one to be like, oh, we was investigating or whatever. But that's just wild that people be putting money over life, and I don't like that. But that's our bad scrub for today's episode. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, because I just hate stuff like this, because it's just like, this should never have happened. And I know like sometimes stuff like this have to happen so that proper procedures and policies can be put in place to prevent it from happening again. But I'm just like, this one here, I'm like, I'm not understanding, like, this could have been stopped in multiple places. But y'all let me know, do y'all think that people like mental health issues should be disclosed, or y'all think that's nobody's business? I'm like, we need to get to a place in society where it's like that's not used against you and it shouldn't matter. But at the same time, like I said, if people are harmed put themselves or harm to themselves, I think I'm saying it right, and to others, like that should be made aware about. Like it should be some type of like disclosure when it's something regarding that. maybe it wasn't reported because it's like, well, he's only trying to harm himself and not other people. But then at the same time, I'm like, I don't know how records and stuff like this work, but I'm like, if he does have a record of trying to harm other people because the wife put a restraining order out on him and then he was stalking that lady. So I'm kind of like, like I said, I'm very solution oriented. So I'm like, how do we stop this from happening again? Which I'm sure by now, there are other things, but even like with the digoxin and insulin, the medications they were using, because honestly, if you give anybody too many of one drug, they gonna die. Like, let's just be honest, because especially like cardiac related drugs and things like that. But I'm just like, the stuff we pull out the Pixies is not regulated. I know narcotics and stuff we have to count and things like that. But as far as like the other stuff, you can like put that you're going to only pull one and take multiple out. And then, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe there's an inventory count and it's like, dang, y'all came out of like, it's supposed to be this many of this pill in here, but now like there's only this many, because like as far as the inventory count, I know you do it for narcotics. Some hospitals and units do narcotic counts at the end of each shift, but for those who don't, that's one thing. But I mean, for like regular medications, when pharmacy sees that it's zeroed out and they have to refill it, they could be like, oh, I mean, like this ran out fast or whatever, but there's no record of showing like I said, you could just pull it out and you saying you pulling out one and you take like five. So I mean, like, that hasn't changed. I know in some hospitals with insulin, you have to have cosigns. So I think that in certain places, like, things have happened, and that's why they have it like that, because you can, like, from my understanding, because when I had to do, I can't remember what I had to do, some type of education thing, but they said that when I was working at one of my hospitals, they had updated the Pyxis machines. And they were telling us how you can talk to the Pyxis people, like like the owners or whatever, like whoever in the hospital. They could talk to the Pyxis people and tell them what they want the Pyxis to do as far as like counting and requiring cosigns and witnesses and things like that. So I'm like, that could be set up. But I'm like, at this point, you just hoping people are trustworthy and doing what they say they're doing with the medication. But I'm like, if that's not set up, you really could just pull however many you want and nobody would know. Or it's like, I know in some hospitals, pharmacy would send, well, they don't do it for sliding scale, but for like the long acting, they would send the set amount in a syringe. You don't pull it from the Pyxis. But like I said, that wouldn't matter for the short acting, so you still could just pull however many you want. So I'm just like, girl, you know how many different things people can do, and we don't know about this stuff until just way later. So that's crazy. But like I said before, y'all give me y'all thoughts down below in regards to Charles Cullen. If I missed anything, definitely fill me in the comments. Like I said, I looked at as many articles as I can. But a lot of the times when you look into these people, like, people be leaving stuff out, people add stuff, and then the timeline be crazy, so it's hard to follow. So I definitely understand what the true crime girlies be saying, how they got to do all this research to try to pull together a cohesive story. So if there is more here that I didn't get to, definitely let us know down in the comments so we could discuss it. And like I said, let me know what y'all think about like the whole mental health thing, and like, should people know about that or not, and whatever else y'all think about how a Pyxis system should be. So now, before we close today's episode, if you guys have been listening, you guys know that we always scrub and sip. To close. So today, I guess we can scrub as it pertains to today's episode. Why we just outside, like, I don't know who I want to scrub. I don't know if I want to scrub Charles Cullen, or if I want to scrub these. No, that's who I want to scrub. I want to scrub these hospitals that put the potential lawsuit threat over human life. That's who I want to scrub, because that shouldn't matter. And that's just honestly ridiculous. This could have been avoided altogether before. Charles Cullen was go Charles Cullen wherever he was go be at, but y'all had a duty to patient safety to do something about that. So y'all help lend a hand in killing all these patients, and that's ridiculous, and I don't like that. And then, as y'all said, how some of the people suspected that boy of doing this stuff and told the people about it, and ain't nothing come to it. That's wild to me. How do you live with yourself? So we scrubbing y'all. I want people to have more character. than what y'all displayed. And hopefully you need to get a bad feeling inside when something not right. Like you don't have no conscience. That's a problem. So we scrubbing y'all. And what I'm gonna sip to today, let's see. My work days have been fine. We can sip to that. I feel like I've transitioned into like a new. I feel like I have phases of like nursing where it's like I'm okay with going to work and like I really hate coming to work every day. I'm gonna die. Right now I'm okay with going to work. So I'm gonna sip to that because that's a nice place to be in and I don't want to take it for granted because I know what it's like to not want to go to work every day. And it's like I'm fighting every day to go to work and do my job and make money. And it'd be like sometimes it gets to a point where it's like the money don't even matter. I just don't want to do this. Like not nursing, but just like in general, like just working. It's like I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like this. But I've been practicing gratitude as of late, like expressing gratitude and like looking more at what I do have and instead of what I don't have. And with leaning into that, it's made going to work like really like optimal. So I'm in a good place right now. So I'm really happy about that. So we're going to sip to that because I know what it's like on the other side. Hopefully you guys have been having good work weeks. If you guys are nurses, or even if you're not a nurse and you just like to listen to this podcast, hopefully y'all have a good week today. We're going to sip. So cheers to us and enjoy the rest of your week.